welcome to BWTM Sports Gaming. So let me let you in on a little thing here. I am meant to be resting, so no videos, but can't be resting on the Fury versus Whyte. 96,000 people are going to be at Wembley tomorrow night. So yeah, it's not one of those fights you can kind of like not talk about. But here are some thoughts that I have coming into this fight that maybe some people are not really paying attention to. A lot has been made of Dillian Whyte as the challenger, and people are just talking about his big left hook. So now, understand this. Dillian Whyte doesn't just have a left hook. And if you believe that Dillian Whyte only just has a left hook, you don't know boxing, all right? A lot of people that talk out of being a fan or fanatic rather than actually studying the dangers of the opponent that Dillian Whyte brings. A lot of people talk about Povetkin knockout. I would really ignore that knockout. Let me give you an example. In 2 fights, Lennox Lewis couldn't knock down Evander Holyfield, but James Toney stopped him. A much lighter guy, a much smaller guy. Lennox Lewis, in all the fights he had against Ray Mercer, or in the fight he had against Ray Mercer, never came close to dropping him. Evander Holyfield dropped Ray Mercer, was the first guy to drop him in his professional career. Okay, so sometimes it's due to leverage, and when you look at Alexander Povetkin, he's coming from a low center of gravity. Tyson Fury is 6'9". He doesn't box anything like Povetkin. Again, you look at a guy like Oscar Rivas, another small guy, able to get on the inside of Dillian. And then you've got Joseph Parker, who threw the right hand straight through the middle. Again, all these guys here are around Dillian's height or shorter than him. Now you look at a guy that is Tyson Fury, who's 6'9". So you're comparing a guy who boxes 6'9" to a guy that boxes 6'2" or 6 foot. You can't do that. So styles make fights. So the sort of punches that Povetkin, Rivas, and Park had the pleasure of throwing and landing might not be as effective. Like Tyson Fury throwing an uppercut from a long distance out, he's liable to get countered with a left hook over the top or a straight right hand down the pipe because he's that tall. And when he throws an uppercut, he leaves his whole body open. And let's remember, this is the same Tyson Fury who threw an uppercut and hit his own self. I'm not hating. It is what it is. That's what's happened. Okay? And Tyson he's always had problems, particularly the overhand right punch. That's always been a problem for him against the smaller fighters. So what he tends to do is to box southpaw. Now, what I find absolutely unbelievable, I cannot understand it. People say, oh, Tyson turned southpaw. He's going to shock Dillian Whyte. This is a guy that lived with Tyson Fury. So him turning southpaw, him going orthodox, him standing on his head is not going to shock Dillian Whyte. It's not going to shock Dillian Whyte. If you want any evidence as to how well Dillian Whyte knows Tyson Fury and how he doesn't take Tyson Fury very seriously in terms of what Tyson says when you talk about Tyson and his retirement, just watch Dillian Whyte. He's been consistent all the way through about what he says about Tyson Fury. If Tyson says one thing one way, he says something the other day. Remember he said something about Joshua? He said, just be yourself. Joshua was another man he spent a lot of time around as well. Just be yourself. Called him Femi. Yeah, and Whyte knew him very well. He knew Joshua for years. You've also got to remember he was in camp with Anthony Joshua for Vladimir Klitschko. He was in Vladimir Klitschko camp with Anthony Joshua. So he knew Joshua very well. He also knows Tyson Fury very, very well. So whether Tyson turns southpaw or he turns orthodox, that's not a big thing. He says he needs to make adjustments. And you want to know how he's ready to make those adjustments? Just take a look at Dillian Whyte at the weigh-in. Just take a look at the weigh-in. So Tyson looks to size him up, and Dillian Whyte's looking at him. And then Tyson starts to do this stuff for him to try and intimidate him. And Dillian's like, nah, don't stop it. Stop that nonsense. You don't know who I am. You know who I am. So don't even try that nonsense with me. So next thing he goes, he stands up tall. So as Tyson stands up tall, Dillian dips. And as Tyson dips, Dillian stands up. And people look at it and go, so what? But if you really think about it, now this is fight time. He's ready. When a fighter is ready, and I think you have to be in the mindset or understand the mindset of a fighter to understand what I'm saying here, or have been a fighter yourself. When you are going to go to war and you're saying that you're going to have to constantly change up and sometimes mirror what the guy is doing. So whenever he does something, you do something. Whenever he does something, you react. So when Tyson went up and stood over him, Dillian went down. When Dillian went down, Tyson went up. Dillian went to join him. So he was all about playing the fun and games. You watch him on the stage here, all fun and games, all fun and games. Wasn't getting caught up into Tyson stuff at all. The one thing that did concern me and was very interesting, that which was more important, more interesting than the press conference all the way in, was the conversation that Dillian Whyte had with Suleiman. The conversation he had with Suleiman is one that I found very, very interesting indeed. And I'll tell you why I found that very interesting. Was because he said to Suleiman, I should have fought Dillian Whyte a long time ago. I should have fought a long time ago. Do you know how much this has cost me? I almost lost my mind, or I lost my mind over this. So to Dillian Whyte's mental health was at threat, or he was going through some mental health challenges when having to deal with bouts of depression. He sounded like he was on the edge. A man like that on the edge, that's something, huh? That's something. So this fight, if Deontay Wilder was the biggest puncher in the world with one punch, which was the right hand, now Tyson Fury fights a guy who could punch the right hand and the left hook. Okay? The left hook and the right hand, and has a jab that can back Tyson up. Right, let me tell you something now. If Dillian Whyte can back Tyson up to the ropes with a double jab, back him to ropes, that allows Dillian Whyte to set up the overhand right, the left hook, yeah? And remember, Dillian Whyte's also got a catch and shoot as well. He was able to, if Tyson Fury decides to brawl at any time with Dillian Whyte, he can kiss goodnight to the WBC title. I'm telling you now. If Tyson boxes Dillian Whyte, he does well. If Tyson tries to brawl with Dillian Whyte, he's got a problem. Because he's not only got to watch out for the left hook, he's got to watch out for the right hand. He's got to watch out for a counter punch. He's got to watch out for a guy who can double the jab, a guy who's much more streetwise, much more canny, much more defensively sound and battle-tested than Deontay Wilder. And let me tell you something else as well. While you all are out there laughing at Dillian Whyte and saying this, that about Dillian Whyte, two of your heroes, Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis, have never got off the deck to win a fight. Dillian Whyte has got off the deck on numerous occasions to win. He got off the deck, okay, to beat Joseph Parker. He got off the deck to beat Oscar Rivas. This is fact. This ain't fiction. This is fact. This is something that Mike Tyson, remember what I said, Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis have never done. And you all call them all-time greats. And they have never, ever got up from getting hit with a shot, a knockout punch, and get up. Never. And Dillian Whyte has done that, okay? I'm not calling Dillian Whyte an all-time great, but give the man his credit and his props and his dues. This guy is a legitimate threat. A a legitimate threat. A legitimate threat. And then you've got Howard the Shadow Knight in the corner as well. So it's Kronk versus Kronk. A lot of people are missing that. Kronk versus Kronk. Okay, so the tricks that Sugar Hill will have, Howard the Shadow Knight will have as well. Dillian Whyte is a more complete fighter than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was, everyone knows, a big right-hand puncher. But he can't fight. Cannot fight. He can keep you at range and use the jab and hit you with big right hands. It's fight. He can't fight. It's not a fighter. But Dillian Whyte can scrap and he can box a bit. I mean, Malik Scott was teaching Dillian Whyte Deontay Wilder how to use the jab to the body, how to use the jab to the head. Dillian Whyte doesn't need to know how to use a jab to body and head. He'll do it, and he'll do it well. He'll surprise people with that double jab. He'll surprise people with double jab. If Dillian Whyte is to win this fight, if both of these guys are going to win this fight, I believe that if Dillian Whyte wins this fight, he's going to be winning it with Tyson's back up against the ropes. That's where I believe he'll land a knockout shot with Tyson's back against the ropes. That's where I think his best work will come, with Tyson's back up against the ropes. And I expect to see Dillian throw different types of punches in this fight as well. Okay? So he will go to Tyson's body. And, you know, when I saw Tyson at the weigh-in, I kept looking at the lower half of his body, his stomach, his gut, and his back, from his back, and I was really concerned about that. Listen, Tyson is a very good boxer. He's got an excellent jab. I prefer watching Tyson Fury, the guy that fought Vladimir Klitschko, the guy with the herky-jerky style. So if he can go back to that style, that's the best style he can have against Dillian Whyte. But I still don't think, even with that style, he can get away in an easy fight with Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte has come to disrupt. And with any fighter that's talking about retirement, very few fighters can talk about retirement going into a fight of this magnitude, with one foot already outside the door talking about retirement, another foot inside the ring. It's a difficult fight to have. And if you've not been motivated in training, and this has been a challenge for you, because Tyson Fury says one thing and he can meet something totally different. Yeah, he could just be saying it because he wants to get the Joshua fight. But if Usyk beats Joshua again, that's out the window. I don't know if he's got any motivation to fight Alexander Usyk. Maybe he does. But this is not a foregone conclusion fight. It isn't. Guy with a two-fisted attack, has a good jab, decent stamina, good, solid punching power, a physically strong heavyweight. Well, I won't get pushed back like how Deontay Wilder got pushed back. Yeah, Dillian Whyte has got his weaknesses. You know, he can throw punches and fall off balance, but if those shots hit you, you're going to know about it. And if Tyson, like I said, if Tyson allows himself to be backed onto the ropes by Dillian Whyte, it's a bad place to be. It's a bad place to be. And I expect to see Dillian Whyte's double jab to be a key in this fight. I expect to see him use the catch and shoot in this fight. And I expect Howard the Shadow Knight to have a lot of key influences in this fight as well. If Dillian Whyte is to do anything in this fight, he's got to do it early. He's got to do it early. He's got to catch Tyson early. You know, I remember when Frank Bruno fought Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, for the first 6 rounds of the fight, was out of it. It was when he started from the 6th round onwards, or 5th round. You know, Tyson Fury generally isn't a fast starter. He isn't. He had to be against Deontay Wilder, but if he fights that way against Dillian Whyte, there's problems. Dillian Whyte, you've got to remember, he's not a guy that's going to come to you that way. He's not a fight guy to bring a fight to you. He's the kind of guy that wants you to bring a fight to him, and he'll counter, catch and go. Yeah, he'll counter, catch and go. That's what he did against Anthony Joshua. and he was injured against Anthony Joshua, and still put up a brave performance against Joshua. So he's rested, he's well, he's good to go. We don't know much about the sparring Dillian's had. We don't know much about his training camp. So nobody really knows. We know he's in damn good shape. As for Tyson being they said he's a stone lighter. Yeah, that's because he recognizes what Dillian Whyte's about. He recognizes, and you can't go in against Dillian Whyte like that. So that's my thoughts on that. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be a super fight. I really do. I think people are going to underestimate Dillian Whyte's ability, in my opinion. I think he's going to be heavily underestimating this fight. And if he pulled out the win, I would not be surprised. Yes, Tyson Fury is the favorite because he's overall the better boxer. But wear and tear, how much of those 3 fights have taken out of Tyson Fury? How much can a one man go to the well? Those punches that Deontay Wilder landed, particularly in the third fight, were very damaging. How much damage has that caused? We're going to find out in the fight. When Dillian hits him on the chin, has he still got the ability to get up? That's the question. We've done it before, but this is post-Wilder era. What's left of Tyson Fury? People expecting the same Tyson Fury that fought Wilder to fight Dillian Whyte. That guy's not going to show up. I don't even know if Tyson Fury can box the way he boxed against Klitschko, it'll be interesting. But Dillian Whyte's going to be bringing that fight. He'll bring it in his own way. And he'll take chances. And if he sees the opportunity, he'll go for it. You know? But like I said, if Dillian Whyte's to win this fight, he's got to be the guy pushing Tyson back and putting him onto the back foot and keeping him on the ropes. That's how Dillian Whyte wins the fight. How Tyson Fury wins the fight? Quite the opposite. If Tyson Fury puts Dillian Whyte's back up against the ropes, he wins the fight. Yeah, so it's the guy that gets knocked out. But Tyson's got to be careful if he gets Dillian against the ropes, because that off the ropes, Dillian can catch and shoot off the ropes. He's dangerous off those ropes, and the left hook is there, and it can be. Tyson can be blindsided. He can be blindsided. So he has to be careful. He has to be very careful when he sets up an attack against and doesn't come rushing against Dillian Whyte against the ropes. Because as Joshua did, coming up against the ropes, boom, as we get hit with a left hook. He's got to be very careful with the catch and shoot. But overall, I think it's going to be a great fight, and they know each other pretty well. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. But Dillian Whyte, unlike other opponents, are not going to fall for the shenanigans. I'm not going to pay any attention to what Tyson Fury does. He doesn't build Tyson Fury up to be any superstar. In fact, he's got little to no respect for Tyson Fury when he gets through them ropes, and that's going to be interesting. Tyson's had the luxury of being able to get into a guy's head in Deontay Wilder, his biggest rival, being able to get inside his head. That won't work with Dillian Whyte. There's no spies in the Dillian Whyte's camp because he's out in Portugal. So it's a very different fight. Very, very different fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. To those of you that are members, thank you so much for your support as always. Really do appreciate it. Right, tomorrow for the fight. This has been BWTM Sports. And I'm out. Take care.